All right, so this is going to be video number 4 in a series of videos explaining how to use n8n and some pretty useful workflows that I've found. So this one is going to be about basically finding ways to get job data to yourself without having to go and type in the title and set your filters and do all that stuff so that you can get access to the job data. So I don't have a demo for this one, but I am going to be using a particular website. It's called Remote Rocket Ship. And we're going to just use this as the website where we're going to pull some data from, just to use an example. And then we are going to drop that into this example sheet. I'm going to obviously erase all this stuff. If you're following along with the series, you will have seen this sheet from our last video where we were showing how to complete your first workflow. But now we are going to be working on a different workflow that is basically to help you understand like another use case that has nothing to do with the previous one. All right, so first thing first, we want to make sure we can get the data. How do we make sure we can get this data? This is where inspecting the page and how it interacts with whatever is behind this page, the server behind it, are communicating. And the thing we want to look for is fetch or XHR, I think that's what they're called, a certain type of request that it's going to try to make to get this data to populate on the page for us. So we want to go to network, and we want to essentially just make the page refresh or change something about it so it will try to pull different data. And you see that it just did a bunch of things in the network. We want to go to fetch/XHR, and this will show us the times that it's trying to do certain requests related to pulling the data out of the database. And you see here, it says job openings. Where's the title? Recruiting coordinator, recruiting coordinator. So it's pulling that data in through this request, and it looks like we get all of the results. Whereas if we use the website, it's coded in a way to only show you the first few results and not all of them. So sometimes you can actually get a better deal on the data that you're grabbing by doing it this way versus like looking normally. But now that we know where the data is coming from, how do we get it into our n8n? To do that, we're going to try repeatedly and fail to, here we go, there. We're going to try and see if we can get it to allow us to use this request directly, right? Because we can copy this as a curl request. And we know from our last video that n8n lets you make curl requests in the software. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can just copy and paste this in, and hopefully that will be all we need to do to get this data to appear in our n8n. So I'm going to do a test run, and it looks like it is pretty much just going to work to get us this data. And this is where we want to do similar to the last time. We want to split because we have everything in one long list, but we want every single one individually. So we want a bunch of lists that are just one item. Hopefully that makes sense. I know that can be a little confusing, but now we are going to split out, and we got 20 items. And with those 20 items, we now can look at each job one at a time. Now, I know there's a lot of stuff in there, so maybe we want to, instead of trying to look at it yet, do the same thing we were doing before, where we edit and we grab the title and then, the description, the tech stack of stuff they want you to work with, the URL, like just the data of what you're actually applying to. Looking for the address, but I don't see. Oh, these are remote jobs. There's no address on here. So we'll just do title, description, tech stack, and URL. And then we're going to split out, or not split out. We're going to get rid of all those other fields. And now we have, all of the structured data, just the stuff we care about, the code, the name, the URL. And then from here, depending on what you want to do, you could easily just save this to another table or, put this somewhere else like Google Sheet or something so that you can go ahead and apply to these jobs. Clearly, you would make the filters better. Obviously, I only filtered US and literally any job. So setting those filters before you take the curl request is pretty important. But this is going to be, the first step of getting that data so that you can do more with it. And that's actually where I'm going to cut this video. Now that we have the data, in the next video, we're going to first save it to a database. All right, in the previous video, we went ahead and collected some job data so that we can use it to, make a cover letter, answer questions about the job, things of that nature. So I'm going to first save it to a database. And previously, in the last video, we collected some data. To collect this data, you would just rerun this. So if you haven't watched the previous video, go ahead and do that, and then you can run this. And I'm going to just save it to an Airtable. And if you don't know how to set up an Airtable, I have also done that in another previous video. I think it was part 3. So check that out if you have not. And then we're going to click update a record, create or update a record actually. And we're going to look for our example sheet. And we're going to go to our example sheet and we're going to change some things about it from that previous workflow. We can obviously create a new one and it will still work the same, but I'm just using that example because it's easy for me to just change it on the fly. So instead of having title here, I've changed it to role, and it says job description summary. And the reason I wrote it that exact way is because that is how the data is coming in. It says job description summary here. So I'm just trying to be as clear as possible because it can get confusing when you rename things to other stuff. And then you look at the code and the code has it written down as a different thing. So keep in mind that when you work. Sorry about that. Next we have skills. Skills is actually going to be tech stack. This is an example of the thing I'm telling you not to do literally right after. But don't be me, be better than me. Then you'll be fine. So we have skills. Next we have website. And I just put these 4 things and then make sure to correctly pick what it is. So a website is a URL. A skill is like a line. It's just like text. Description would be like a lot of text and then single line for the title. But I went ahead and did that, and then I got that job data that we got from Remote Rocket Ship in the last video, and I went ahead and picked out the things that I want to keep, which were the title, the URL, the description, and then the tech stack, which is this big object here, a couple of different things they want you to use in the job. I'm going to go ahead and try to populate this data to the table so that we can not have to worry about if we have it or not. Oh, it's saving nothing. Interesting. Oh, it's because it's not, doesn't have anything here. Sorry about that. But we figured it out. Didn't take us very long. I'm going to go ahead and erase it one more time. And then we're going to run it one more time and it should work this time. So go ahead and just run the Airtable node. Let that one run. And we'll hopefully see some actual stuff. Oh, it didn't work at all. So I'm going to run it again. And now it should actually do what we need to do. I had to remove the skills so that it would allow me to copy it over, because this is an array and it doesn't like that. It wants it to be just text. And there's a way to get around that, but it's not really something I'm going to do right now because I just want to keep moving forward. But now we have that job data in the sheet, right? So we can see it in here. We can then use that program, n8n, to come into the sheet and do stuff with this data without having to go ahead and like run this and pull it from the website, split it out, do all this stuff. You don't have to do this anymore. You can just go ahead and call this sheet, like talk to this, and now you have all your data. Now, with all this data, what can we do? We want to learn. We want to get information about each job. And how do we do that? We can do a few things. We could use AI to go out and search the web for us, like something like, let's see, Perplexity. We could use Perplexity, which is just it's AI with a browser, and we can go ahead and like try to look up accredited labs, right? This is the company. And then we could use this data plus our own data, like let's say your resume or something, and you could very, very closely align with this company's message, mission, whatever they're trying to do to make yourself a better candidate. Then get yourself a cover letter. But what we're going to do is we're just going to do something simple. And we're just going to use the description, the title, and we're going to make a cover letter. We're going to just try to make ourselves look good, even though we're not going to give it any data about ourselves. We're going to just write a general cover letter. So this flow is done. Like we can save it here. This works. It'll always pull stuff into here. But let's say you wanted to find jobs every day instead of just one time. You would change this node to a schedule node. And this is a schedule trigger. And this is the parameters for it. You can have it run every day at midnight, really anytime you want. I usually would do it like maybe 8 o'clock. And then you can set custom cron, which is just like a special way to write code, or it's like syntax basically to say a date and time of a year and then use that instead if you don't want to do days. I would just do days for this use case, but there's obviously times where cron is going to be important. Maybe you need to take out the weekends and you don't want it on the weekends. That's when you would use cron. So we're going to take this schedule trigger. We're going to remove this one because now we don't want it to run when we click the button. We want it to run when the time comes of 8 a.m. because n8n is always online. If you're running it in the cloud or you're running it on your server at home, as long as you have it open, it's always kind of doing things if you set it to have schedules. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. Now this will run every day and then populate this into my sheet every day. And that's great. You know, we can go in here ourselves and like go to this link and apply and, you know, do all those things. But there's ways to take this further. One way we're going to take this further is to give us a bit of a heads up, right? We're going to use a lot of the language they're looking for to create something that looks and sounds like what they're looking for. Now, obviously, this is up to you to make sure that you are giving it the right information about yourself so that it can actually know who you are and not lie. Because obviously, that would be terrible here. If you have your cover letter say the incorrect things, it's going to look bad on you. And obviously, that's not going to be very helpful to find a job. But I'm not going to get super into this because this is a very long-winded topic. This is about like RAG and retrieval augmented generation and stuff like that. Not really the scope of the video. We're going to create a new flow. And with this flow, first we're going to just do it off of pressing the button. And we're going to load that Airtable sheet. So we need to get Airtable. And we need to get record. Okay, so we're actually searching. Is that accurate? Okay, so it's not to get a record, it's to search all records. But after we get those records available to us in n8n, we can then use AI. And earlier in video number 2, I went over how to add credentials. I did show how to add OpenAI to your n8n. So go over there, find that little part of the video, follow along, come back if that's what you're doing. And from here, we are going to, I don't know why I did this. This is not what we need to do. Keep doing the wrong thing. From here, we're going to go ahead and go to advanced AI. We're going to just select LLM chain. And we're actually going to use it where we define it ourselves instead of it getting it from like a chat. We're just going to like talk to it ourselves. And this is where we add OpenAI. We'll just stick with the GPT-4o mini, which is fine. We're not doing anything too complicated. And now we have it where the AI can see the information from the job data. Because look, we have our Airtable with the role. Then we have the description, right? And that's what we would more than likely give it, like the title and the description. And from here, let me open up this view. So if you hit this little tab, it'll show you the expression view. This is like a coding kind of view. So if you're like bringing in data, it'll show that data on the other side of what it'll look like to the AI. So here it looks like this because it's what we're pulling in, because that's the name of the items there. But after that, it turns into this, because that's what the value, the actual thing this name represents. This is what it actually is. So we're just gonna quickly write down a prompt for the AI to use to try and, do something. So let's say write a cover letter about for this job. It's super simple. Obviously an example. Don't just do this and like send somebody this cover letter. It will be terrible. But we're gonna hit. Oh, actually, we're gonna do it 20 times. You see how it says 20 items? That's how many times this is going to run, because that's how many items it has to go through. So we're actually gonna add a limit, and this will essentially tell it to just run one time instead of 20 times. So I'll progress the flow and let it populate this. So now it's just one. And then now we can let the artificial intelligence try and do something. All right, perfect. So now it gave us a cover letter here based on just this little bit of information. Obviously, didn't have much to go on, but this is kind of one of the more like simple use cases for this, where you just have it kind of do a little for you. And I did talk about perplexity, right? Because you could have, instead of just giving it the data for the job, like going straight across here, what if you had another node where you go to the HTTP request? What if you go straight to the website? We're just experimenting here. I don't know if this is going to work. What if you got the website from this page, all right? I don't hate when it does this. And then you go to it, right? And this is going to give you everything that's on that page. This is going to be a lot of code, like a lot of code. I just realized I can do this. So this is a markdown viewer. If we put this in front of the URL, this will give us a markdown of whatever was on the page instead of the actual HTML, which will make it much easier to use for the artificial intelligence, since it's like the words on the page without the HTML and the CSS and all the code. So instead of getting all that code like we got before, we got this very readable human text response here. And it's just job descriptions, it looks like. So what if we gave it that instead of just, I just realized I want to split this as well because I just saw it gave me 20 results. Well, I'm just going to execute once, because if you just run it once, it should only give the first one. So think about that. We can, instead of just giving it the information we found on remote rocket ship, because we really didn't find too much, just this little bit of data right here, this little text. We are now going to the URL, grabbing whatever information we can see on that page so we can learn even more. And then now we're formulating a slightly better cover letter because we have more information. And that's the name of the game, I think, is making sure you are getting access to as much info as possible so you can uh, self-align the most. 'Cause I feel like that's the goal. Self-alignment so that you can land your role. So they see that you have the skills and they want to hire you, right? Simple. So I'm going to run it again. We're going to get a better cover letter, hopefully. We forgot to give it the data. Let me guess, the data is in the first run. All right, so in this instance, I think getting rid of the limit here is the best way to move forward because we're just executing this one time with the URL from the previous one, and we can just go ahead and grab the data from there, and because it's going to load the Airtable regardless. So if we load the Airtable, go to the URL, give it the information from the Airtable and the URL, it'll still work the same while just being better. Because when you have multiple lines that go into one thing, it has to trigger each line individually. Let me go back. See that this right here will cause it to trigger one time and then the trigger again. And that's usually not a good thing for LLM. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes you do it on purpose. But in this case, it's not really what we're here to do. So we are going to go ahead and remove all this again because we want the LLM to just run one time with all of the data that we collected. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to deactivate it. I'm going to click on it and press D. That'll let me deactivate it. And we're going to go ahead and run it again to collect all the data, right? And then we need to give it back what we removed. So we'll give it the information about the job and then the title. And you can see it gets a way better description of what the actual job is. So now it will write a much cleaner cover letter. So I'm going to deactivate this, click on it and press D again. And then we're going to go ahead and run it this time. All right, now we got a response. We're going to go ahead and hit the logs. This will show us the actual format of whatever it's got. And all we care about is this. And, you know, I don't know if it looks good or not. Cold outreach. Yep, cold outreach is talking about the right things, is doing what you would expect here. Obviously, this is a pretty crude cover letter. It doesn't have much information about you, the person applying. So obviously, that's going to be something that is a drawback here. So you could obviously add more to this. There's a thing called system messages or prompts where you could add your resume here and it'll try to use that plus the prompt. I'm not going to do that because it's just not the scope. It's just an example. But now that we have this new cover letter that we just created, maybe we want to put that cover letter into the sheet that we created earlier so that we can use it when we are referencing this information in the future in an interview or after when we go to apply ourselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new Airtable update record update. So resources record, we're going to try to update it. We're going to go to the Airtable. We're going to add a new field. We're going to call it cover letter. And this is going to be long text because it's going to be a giant cover letter and it's going to populate it in here for us. First, I'm going to go ahead and go back and actually just, actually, maybe I don't need to, but I'm going to refresh the list. I don't know what that does. I just feel like it's going to make me get an error if I don't do that. All right, there we go. Now, what we want to do is add this description to the ID of whatever slot in the whatever columns I'm going across, if that makes sense. And we want to add the cover letter from the AI into there. So everything else is going to stay the same because we just want to enrich our data. This is what it's called, enrichment, where you're taking some data, using it to get more data about that thing, and then add it. So now when I do this, it should just add this to the first job in the sheet, the table. All right, it went ahead and added it to the 7th, but it put it on the right job, so it's not technically a bad thing, just not where I expected it to go. But now we have that cover letter. It's kind of hard to see. There we go. But we have that whole cover letter in our sheet. And let's say you're applying. Let's say we went to the URL. You know, they're going to ask you for a cover letter. Boom, you have it. Oh, wait, you have to make it into a file. But you get what I'm saying. You have the information. Obviously, you're going to tweak it way more than this. You're not going to just do this. I really hope you don't do that. That'd be bad. You will not find the job that way, but this is the flow. Like, this is how you would do that. You read your sheet, you get your information about the job through using something like Jenna AI, which I didn't really go over, but this turns any web page into words, like just words. But then after that, you give the artificial intelligence the page of words that you found, the URL for the job, and then you tell it to do something with that. Then you save that to whatever job you were looking at the time when it was picking which one. So that's pretty much the end of the flow. A little bit longer in this one, but we did kind of on the fly iterate on our process, which was great for showing how flexible n8n can be. Catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.